Hi guys, and welcome back to another Off the Cuff. So today we're going to be talking about Bill Maher. Ben Shapiro and Malcolm Nance were both on Bill Maher's show over the weekend, and it was just a complete S show between these two. So Malcolm Nance is he's an intelligence analyst. He specializes in torture and terrorism and various other wonderful and weird things. And obviously Ben Shapiro, and he also has a history in the Navy, and Ben Shapiro is obviously an author and a pundit, Republican, and yeah. So these two were asked to summarize critical theory for Bill Maher, and I will just add, I used to watch Bill Maher, and then he began to lose his mind. He has sometimes kind of stuck up for modern day rationality, like common sense, occasionally. But even when he does that, he's really, really like stretching himself. So yeah, I don't really know what I think of Bill Maher at the moment. Bill Nance, I've seen him on the show a few times over the years, and he comes across as quite arrogant. He very much has that sort of smile that doesn't mean what most people's smile means. And he also comes across as not really knowing what he's talking about. But yeah, so let's have a look.
Let's get back into muzzle laws. There's these laws that have been introduced in a number of states to not talk about critical race theory.
The muzzle laws he's talking about, for anybody outside the states, it tends to have been more conservative and libertarians that are requesting that they stop teaching CRT or they stop implementing CRT practice in schools. It's now become a very kind of popular, famous topic. As we've seen, there's been an awful lot of race grifting going on, and CRT is just another aspect of that. So yeah, they're talking about politicians saying that we should leave CRT or the practice of CRT out of schools.
Now, critical race theory, I must say, to begin with, I hadn't heard the term probably a year ago. Now I hear it every day. I think Americans are just starting to hear it. And I think no one knows exactly what it is. How would you describe it? And then we'll ask, how would you describe it? What is critical race theory?
I do have to cut this up a bit because otherwise it's going to get pulled down. But yeah, so at this point, he's asking two people to describe it. If you don't know what it is, or you're unsure of what it is, just this would be the point to say that, I would imagine.
I will admit that I read a lot of critical race theory in law school. So, the work of Derek Bell or Gene Stefan. Critical race theory essentially argues that racism is baked into all the systems of American society, and that any sort of neutral system is in fact a guise for racial power. Even things that are purportedly good in terms of race, so long as they uphold these broader systems, things like capitalism or things like the meritocracy, these things are actually just guises for power. And so what that boils down to in sort of practical terms is all disparity equals discrimination. If you can see any stat where black people are underperforming white people, this means the system was set up for the benefit of white people, and that white people have a duty to tear down these systems in order to alleviate the racism that's implicit in those systems. When it comes to schools, what this tends to boil down to is kids who are white have experienced privilege because the system was built for white people, and we have to change the standards.
Right.
Okay, so to simplify it a bit, critical theory came first, came from the sort of early 1900s in Germany, is heavily linked to Marxism and the Frankfurt School. Critical race theory came out there, I think it was in the 70s in America. And essentially what the sort of original Marxist critical theory was that everything in society was built by the powerful and the wealthy, and so it needs to be torn down. And what critical race theory did, because you also have critical gender theory, is essentially saying that everything was built by white people, so only white people can succeed, and so we need to tear it down. And then obviously with gender theory, only men built everything, and so it needs to be torn down because otherwise only men will succeed. Obviously, it's utterly ridiculous, and the sorts of people that espouse these things normally destroy their own point by saying things like, well, white people didn't build this. And there's some truth to some of that, but it just destroys the entire theory. But anyway, there we go.
Now, okay, well, so Malcolm, you tell me your definition.
Oh, I agree with everything he just said.
Oh, great.
I appreciate you being honest and defining of what it's like to be Black American, right? That is, we're talking about a system.
That's not fair.
What? This is how monumentally stupid some of these people are. Or, okay, I'll be really fair. This is how monumentally stupid Malcolm Nance was in that exact moment. So saying what he just said would be like someone asking you to define what a rainbow is and then being like, oh, Thank you for telling me what Skittles taste like.
No, I'm just saying I agree with all of those suppositions because they are grounded in truth. Look, the funny thing is, it's not just African Americans, right? It's also the Scalp Act of 1749, where for $300 modern you had to cut off the head with a hair of an Indian to prove that you got them out of the way so they could settle. That's a little bit of American history that people should know about. The Chinese Exclusion Acts of the 1840. These are things.
Yeah, we all know that countries and people have been vicious, and I'm failing to see how this has anything to do with critical race theory. You know, we've been taught for years how vicious and violent we've all been to each other in the past. Yeah, so what's this to do with critical race theory being implemented in schools?
It's not true that people don't talk about these things. We all did
You
learn about...
don't want them talked about?
No, that's not true either.
You want to cancel
No,
them?
Malcolm, I'm sorry, you're lying. That's lying. It is lying. I've personally talked about many of the things that you just mentioned. I defined critical race theory by citing the actual authors of critical race theory, and you seem to be a pretty good beneficiary of the meritocracy because you have merit, Malcolm. So if you're going to criticize the meritocracy as an outgrowth of white supremacy, then you're going to have to tear down the system that you've succeeded in because you have merit.
Yeah, so fairly generous of Ben. Ben is saying that in his career he has merit and he has succeeded in a system, or in the system that he is standing partly against. So he's saying that, does that mean that you would have to tear it down?
You do not have merit.
You know, when my great-great-grandfather ran away from slavery to join the 111th U.S. Colored Troops and fight against the South, keeping human beings as slaves, he didn't think, you know what, in 150 years, my great-great-grandson's going to have to sit on stage and argue with a guy who thinks all that's bullshit. All right?
What is he talking about? This is something that really frustrates me when people don't know what they're talking about, but they pretend they do. Especially when they're getting the laughter from the SEALs in the audience, they feel like they should keep going. This dude doesn't understand. CRT is not. Some bad things were done in the past, and people should know about it, and that's cool. That's not what it is. Oh, and also I feel like there were other people that were fighting the South as well, but I could be wrong.
I'm just saying, Malcolm, there is no controversy. The controversy that's made up is people saying that this is being discussed, this is being taught in schools, and that kids should be...
That's not true.
It's not even a real controversy.
Malcolm, the fifth largest school district in America, Clark County, just decided that they were going to lower standards with regard to testing because they wanted to alleviate disparities in outcomes. That is an outgrowth of critical race theory.
Can you draw a straight line to it?
Yes.
Really?
100%, because when you say that the meritocracy is an outgrowth of white supremacy, and then you suggest that I'm somehow denying that slavery took place, or that your great-great-great-grandfather was a hero, because I'm saying that I want people tested when they are in school to see if they are good at school, then what you're purporting to push now is just nonsense. I'm sorry, just sheer bullshit, Malcolm. It's just bullshit.
No, but I think it's also a leap to say that he thought that was bullshit, because that's not what it is. I mean, are we talking about 2021, or are we talking about 1861?
Thank you. And this is what I mean about Bill Maher. Like, for everything he does wrong, and for all the times that you're kind of banging your head against a wall, he does at least push back against some of these people. And like it or not, Real Talk with Bill Maher, even though I don't watch it anymore, it is an American institution now. Many, many, many people watch that show. And so if he doesn't push back at all, then, you guys really are in trouble. And as an effect, we are as well.
Because
the point is, can we talk about 1861 and 2021?
Yes, we can. And I don't know who's against talking about history.
Well, I understand that they want to, in Texas, they're talking about removing references to the Ku Klux Klan. They're talking about removing. Come on.
That's Texas.
How can you watch Forrest Gump without even knowing who Nathan Bedford Forrest is? Right? These are people who are historical figures who did bad things. No one is actually saying we want to go back and erase everything and restart and talk to you about these things. Critical race theory is a subject because the Republican right has made it a subject.
No.
Roy Teixeira just wrote a piece, the emerging Democrat majority, Roy Teixeira, he just wrote a piece about what he called the Fox News fallacy, a tendency of people on the left to believe that just because Fox News mentions something, it can't be real. The reality is, a lot of this stuff is taught in schools.
You mean like viruses?
Well, okay.
Well,
Can I?
Now I'm just...
There are states, like from the old Confederacy, I think, who do want to airbrush history. That's not, I think, the majority in this country. If you ask me critical race theory, if you say, does that mean teach history unvarnished? I would say yes. Then I'm totally for critical race theory.
That's already what we do, Bill. And obviously critical race theory is not just teaching history unvarnished.
If critical race theory means making children in school fixate on race, I'm not for that. If it's about collective guilt, I didn't do anything to your great-great-great-grandfather. I don't want to be responsible.
See, look at his smug face. I want to be charitable, but I just think he's probably sitting there thinking, yeah, they did. I bet they did. You know, for all he knows, Bill Maher's Irish. Bill Maher's ancestry might have come over in the 1920s. And even if they didn't, what are the chances of them, being the 3% of people that actually did something?
I don't want to be responsible for that. If it's about, a toxicity of just from being born white, if it's about dividing everybody into oppressor and oppressive, oppressed and oppressor,
That's literally exactly what it is.
I'm not for that. So there are things that are being taught and are going around that I'm not for, that if that was critical race theory, I wouldn't be for.
I agree with you. I don't think that's critical race theory.
Listen, you don't get to define what it is. Critical race theory is critical race theory. You can't just pull a massive cheesy smirk and then be like, I don't think that's what it is. I don't care what you think it is. It is what it is. And it's not what you're talking about. Jesus, man.
I think that's what's happened here, as this terminology, sort of like defund the police.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, he is definitely one of those people that has no idea what he's talking about and just wants to kind of bend the narrative of things to suit his own agenda and then kind of smooth out the pillow before allowing the general public to rest their head on his altered narrative. Because if he thinks that defund the police didn't literally mean defund the police, then he is beyond a liar.
If we agree that history should be taught, why are you defending critical race theory, which is not history?
Did I not just say a moment ago that I think that term has been hijacked and that's not what
Okay,
we're
so
talking
let's say
about?
Then why are
critical
you
race
defending
theory.
it?
I'm going to go back and repeat that I didn't say that.
Okay.
You are literally defending critical race theory by redefining it as just teaching history, which is a cheap semantic trick, and you know it.
Is this what you do on your show? Because it sucks.
I appreciate that. I will comfort myself by sleeping on my bed made of money.
Oh, man. Bit petty, but there we go.
How about that Andrew Cuomo? I tell you.
Yeah, so hopefully that was somewhat entertaining. I always used to give that guy, Malcolm Nance, the benefit of the doubt, but I think the more I watch him, the more he just seems like somebody that doesn't really know what he's talking about, someone that gets most of their information from CNN and MSNBC and the Washington Post and doesn't actually bother reading several different outlets. I think it's much harder to do that if you're in America, but if you're outside of America, you tend to kind of have that detached view on things, so you can kind of see both or all different sides and all of their arguments. And yeah, just half the stuff he was saying is just insanity. He clearly has no idea what actual critical race theory is. If he does, then he's just being one of these people that keeps it under wraps, or at least puts a bow on it so that people don't really know what it is. Because if they did, there's no way in hell that they would want that taught in their schools. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish